What's going on, everybody, at Rush Hour Sports Network? It is yours truly, Jay Smooth, here to bring you the NFL coverage for week number 18. And joining me, as always, is co host B Money. How's it going, sir?
What's up, fam?
Hey,
It's
good to have.
playoff time.
Yep, just about playoff time. And right before we get to playoff time, we have to wrap up week number 18. It's weird to say considering it is the first time ever, but hey, first time for everything. Let's see. We're gonna go ahead and start Saturday with the Chiefs and the Broncos. The Chiefs won 28-24. Uh, this was actually a much closer game than anticipated. It seemed as if it was a little surprising that the Chiefs kept everybody in there, but considering how their season went, it made a lot of sense. And considering how the game went, it made sense because Denver almost pulled off a shocking upset. But they were able to prevail at the very end. The Chiefs did struggle in this one, but a much needed win just for the sake of their momentum going into the playoffs.
Yeah, the Chiefs hang on and get a victory here, drive themselves into the playoffs. Browns. The Broncos, a valiant effort. But speaking of the Browns, I remember us talking about this game when it was going on, and I made the comparison of calling the Broncos Browns of the AFC West
Right.
because they have all the talent, but they just don't have a quarterback.
Yeah, and it's a fair one to make considering that even despite trading away a piece like Von Miller, they still have like a pretty good defense and their offense. They've always had the weapons in terms of the running game and the receivers, but yeah, Drew Lock has not lived up to expectations. And even though Bridgewater was a suitable replacement, he's not the replacement the Broncos had in mind for their future. So unfortunately, Drew Lock not developing set them back quite a bit.
Yeah,
Yeah, and hey, Denver is pretty much going to be on the lookout for a quarterback in the draft this year, no question about it. Like they're probably wherever they land in the draft, you can pretty much guarantee they're going to pick whatever the best quarterback available is. That's certainly going to be on their mind. That is if they don't pick up, say, like a Deshaun Watson, or if they don't pick up any sort of veteran free agency.
yeah.
Definitely. And then in our second game of our Saturday edition of NFL, we had the Dallas Cowboys beat up on the Philadelphia Eagles 51-26. And what's crazy about this game is that it was actually very close. I would say until about like third, fourth quarter, and then Dallas just broke away and completely destroyed the Philly Birds. Even though Philly's still going to go to the playoffs, they're going to go to the playoffs a little bit demoralized, considering they were just destroyed by the NFC East champion. I mean, hey, a dominant victory for Dallas, and they needed this type of victory to keep their momentum high going into the playoff chase.
Yeah, yeah, it was a big win for Dallas. Interesting that Philly decided to sit their starters in this one, um, but I feel like that means that there's nothing you can really predict of like how Philadelphia is going to come out. So we'll see how this playoffs matchups go.
Absolutely, and we're gonna get into those playoff matchups later. And it's funny because Philly literally has to face the defending Super Bowl champions in the very first round, and I guess that's
Yeah,
probably why they set a lot of their starters. Because hey, I mean, hey, if that's who you're facing first round right off the bat, then why not, right?
yeah. They said, hey, I mean, we Dallas, you're cool and all, but we got to be prepared for the game that actually matters. So
Exactly, exactly.
yeah,
Now going to Sunday, a little bit of actually not even a little bit a big upset here. Look at the Detroit Lions finishing strong despite a I would say an abysmal season. They fought hard all year long though. That was the key word. They fought. And in a game like this, they certainly fought. Aaron Rodgers. Actually, no, it wasn't an Aaron Rodgers day. This was a Jordan Love game, wasn't it?
yeah. The Packers, I believe, sat their starters.
Yeah, they did. I figured that. And honestly, I thought with a game like this, like Jordan Love, when he got the showcase against the Chiefs, like everybody pretty much figured he'd get his ass kicked because it's the Chiefs. But in a game like this, you would think maybe Jordan Love would fare better. And I mean, he had an okay game, but I'm going to tell you this. It certainly was not one of those performances where you look at it and say, that's why the Packers thought about trading Aaron Rodgers. No, the Packers are going to beg Aaron to stay now after seeing a game like this. The Detroit Lions close out their season 37-30. They still pick number one overall in the draft, correct?
Jacksonville picks number
Ah,
one overall.
that's right.
We'll go over the draft order at the end.
That's true. Cause yeah, that's right. I thought maybe Detroit had still salvaged their pick, but apparently not. But like you said, we're gonna get into that later. But yeah, the theme of this, Jordan Love did not play. He did not play a strong game against a weak opponent. This certainly says, I think, a lot more about him in terms of evaluation than I think we knew before. The Chiefs game, you can have excuses, but a game like that, not so much. But anyways, doesn't affect the.
Yeah, and also the official news is that Aaron Rodgers, I believe, played the first half, and
Ah,
then they put in the bench guys for the second half.
goodness gracious. Well, it's funny because I believe Detroit, they were pretty much in this game the entire time, right? From what I understand.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so we could always chalk it up to the Packers essentially packing it up, no pun intended. But even so, you would think at least Jordan Love would be able to close it out here, but that's not a good one for the record. But anyways, though, the Packers will move on to the playoffs despite
I
all
mean,
that.
put it this way, as we talked about, in the half of play, Aaron Rodgers threw 2 touchdowns. It had the Packers in it. It was a close game, and then in the second half, yeah, I think at halftime the score was I think the Lions were ahead, but the
Yeah,
score was 17-13 at halftime.
yeah, I was about to say that the
Um,
Lions pretty much were in control.
yeah, but then after that, Jordan Love comes in and throws 2 picks. Um,
Yeah,
there's a fumble in there too.
yeah, you see what I mean? Like that's that. Even though, like you said, the Lions were in control, that is a tale of two quarterbacks right there. You got the reigning season MVP, and then you have a guy that was drafted high that the franchise was thinking about replacing said MVP with, only to see that he's not quite what they thought, at least
Yeah,
so
it's going to be
far.
interesting. I mean, so we have this. I mean, we'll talk about the Packers later, but it'll be interesting to see if Aaron Rodgers sticks around next season.
Yeah, that certainly will be one of the storylines to look at
Him
heading
and
into.
Devontae Adams.
Exactly. It's certainly going to be something to look at for the Packers offseason, no doubt about it. In our next game, we go to Jacksonville, where said Jaguars actually beat the Colts 26-11. This was the upset of the weekend right here because, I
For
mean,
sure.
for Indy, you want to talk about a crash and burn disappointment. I mean, this team was streaking at one point. They were like, and I'm not talking about the game, I'm talking about in the season. Like they put on an impressive amount of wins. They look like a very dangerous team that could, maybe sneak in as a wild card and cause some damage. But to have your fate snatched away by the Jaguars of all teams, the worst. Honestly, this is the worst time to have a loss like this. This is a terrible loss on the
I mean, there's
franchise
no
right here.
worse time to have a loss
Right.
to the team that will have the #1 draft pick than losing in a win-in game for the playoffs. And
Exactly.
especially when coming into this game, the Colts were considered a team that was a legitimate threat in the AFC. And it's pretty clear they ain't no threat no more.
Yeah, they
Um,
are not a threat to anyone anymore, and you know what? It really it's such a disappointment because we had talked highly about the Colts throughout the second half of the season and how they were starting to find their rhythm, and Taylor in the backfield was just being a complete beast, and Carson Wentz was finally putting together some wins that were meaningful and playing some meaningful football instead of being on the sidelines. And then this happens. Like Colts fans have to be pissed. I know they have to be pissed.
oh, absolutely they are. And I think the other important news coming out of Colts camp after the ending of their season is that no one in the Colts organization, not Coach Frank Wright, not the general manager, not anyone, has openly, or they've skittish about committing to Carson Wentz to being their quarterback for the future.
And you know what? That goes back to the Philadelphia thing with Nick Foles and whatnot. Even though that was a different situation where Foles got him a championship, but still, the fact that Carson Wentz is now having his status questioned in not one but two different teams, that is not the best look to have right now if you're Carson Wentz.
Yeah, and I mean, like, we all saw it coming. We all know the reason why the Colts were a threat this year was because of Jonathan Taylor and
Right.
the defense.
That in the defense,
had nothing
yeah.
to do with Carson Wentz.
Right.
So, this isn't surprising at all. But boy, is it depressing that like it had to show up the way it did. Because let's be honest, Carson Wentz was a large part of the reason why they lost this football game. He played horribly.
Exactly. It's certainly not a good look right there, man. It's not a good look for Carson. Not a good look for the Colts considering they put so much stock into the guy. And for this to happen, it's a huge step back, man. It's a huge step back for the Colts. Cuz now they have to go back to square one and they really have to think, well, is he really going to be our leader for the future?
Well, and that's the thing is that like what's really rough about this team is that similar to the Broncos that we talked about earlier, is that it's pretty clear that for both teams, I think that they're just a quarterback away. But that's the hardest part is finding a good quarterback.
Exactly.
You know.
Yeah, they're right back to square one with it. It seems like it's going to be an interesting offseason for the Colts after this. That is for sure.
Also, speaking of the Broncos, as I've kind of mentioned them a couple times in this segment about the Colts and Jaguars, but Broncos, we got a report that Vic Fangio is out as the head coach of the Broncos.
Well, we were going to get to the firings of the coaches at the.
Oh, you want to do a whole segment with it?
Yeah.
Shoot.
Yeah, we don't have to go team by team. We're just gonna straight go a segment where we just list everybody that's canned.
Gotcha.
Yeah, but yeah, definitely. That's certainly one of the firings, one of many firings that went down. There was even one earlier today that we definitely have to talk about.
Yeah.
And actually, it does have something to do with this game right here. The Washington, for the last time ever, the Washington football team, I believe their new name is February 2nd, is when we'll know it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
It's supposed to be that Groundhog Day reveal. I think it's funny. The fact that it's on
That should be the Groundhogs.
Yeah, like everybody thinks it's gonna be the Red Hogs. Like that's because it's on Groundhog Day. The reveal, like it seems. Well, I'll tell you what. It's better than some of the other names I've heard, which are completely ridiculous. But yeah, man, the Washington football team for the last time as their name, they beat the Giants 22-7 after Joe Judge promised to beat the shit out of the Washington team, and he did not do that. They did the exact opposite. Washington beat them up, and you know what? I have to say this: it's sad to watch Saquon Barkley play. It is depressing, and let me tell you why it's depressing. He has no offensive line. He has no quarterback. They have decent weapons, the Giants.
They ruined this man's career.
They did. Like, watching him run now is very depressing because, like, you can tell he has the ability to run through the holes and gain some yards and make some big plays, but he has no protection. And when up against at least an average defensive line, excuse me, he'd get swallowed up easily. Like, Washington had a field day beating up Barkley, and I'm like, there's no way this should be happening to this guy. To a talent like that. It's ridiculous. And by the way, I hope the Giants look heavily into a quarterback in free agency, whether it's Russell Wilson, a Matt Ryan, somebody like that. They need to look for a quarterback because I'm
gonna be honest.
Daniel Dimes is trash.
I hope they don't look for a quarterback in free agency.
Well, that's because you want him to be bad.
Well, it's not that I want them to be bad. It's because I want them to blow up the entire team and start over again.
Well, that's part.
That means not wasting someone's career in free agency.
Well, unfortunately, it seems like that's what's going to happen because here's the other option they have. They can go back to drafting a quarterback, but you have to. But here's their draft history, like in terms of quarterbacks. Daniel Jacobs, or I'm sorry, what's his name? Daniel Jones. The guy had a losing record at the University of Duke. He had more losses than wins, and he was drafted high. Whoever they pick is probably going to be some guy from Old Dominion who probably has like maybe one or two more wins than he does losses with horrible accuracy like this guy. Because whoever the Giants get in the draft, they're probably not going to be day one ready. That's for sure.
Now, for what it's worth, we already know that this year's draft class is not a good quarterback class.
Yeah,
That's a given.
that is true.
But like, for me, because I think the Giants need to blow everything up and start over again.
Yeah, they do.
If they go for a free agent quarterback, it needs to be like a second, third tier free agent quarterback like a Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Yeah,
they don't need to be wasting Russell Wilson's time or Aaron Rodgers or Matt Ryan. They don't need to be wasting their time.
I agree. You know? They're gonna be they're likely gonna get somebody like you said that's gonna be a third tier. You know who could end up being there if well, I don't even know what his status is gonna be, but
a Tyrod Taylor.
Yeah, I was gonna say like a Tyrod Taylor, a Mitchell Trubisky could probably end up there. We could end up seeing somebody like that end up there. Absolutely. So I'm like you said, it's got to be somebody in the middle of the pack. Now in our next game, I was a bit shocked by this. The Vikings actually beat the Bears 31-17. I would say what's noteworthy about this game is that well, even though it was a final win for Minnesota despite an ugly season, I'm going to get, well, of course, we're going to wait till our segment to talk about the real reason, like the real highlight of this game. But all I will say is this was certainly a cleaning of the house moment right here because the Minnesota team, the way it's put together now with a few band-aids in the defense as well as like offensive pieces that clearly gel well with the offense, but because of who the quarterback is, it's trash. You can tell that team's probably going to look a little bit different next year. I see Minnesota making a lot of moves in free agency, but of course that all depends on what they do in terms of the front office and coaching situation, which we'll talk about a little later. As for the Bears, not only do they've already fired their coach. Well, yeah, we're going to talk about it later, but yeah, they essentially well, let's just say this about the Bears. I anticipate they're going to be another team that's going to clean house. The only person that's probably going to be safe on that squad is Justin Fields, but everybody else, I see them either getting shipped out or at least be evaluated to be shipped out.
I'd say Justin Fields. I'd say probably Roquan Smith is probably safe too.
Yeah, that's true. Him too. Defense. That is a very good point. They definitely need to hold on to him. And in our next game, Tennessee defeated the Texans 28-25 in a very close game. Tennessee is going to go into the playoffs with Derrick Henry. That is a good sign for the Titans. As for the Texans, I mean, hey, David Culley had one hell of a not even a tumultuous year. It was a rough year considering all the stuff surrounding the quarterback situation in Houston. I'll say this. Deshaun Watson is not going to be on that squad before the next season. There are too many teams that need him right now that they are willing to shelve the burden that comes with him. It seems as if, well, whatever his legal situation is, because it's still being handled, which is actually kind of surprising. Whatever his situation is going to be, it seems like there are some teams out there that are willing to take the risk just because of who he is. So I have a good feeling Deshaun is going to be out of Houston at some point. I'm not sure if it'll be at the draft or during the important part of free agency, but at some point he's going to be moved out of there. That is for sure.
God forbid somebody moves him, and the minute he gets back in the press of being moved, we find out that there's some more cases and stuff.
Yeah, that's the thing, man. Like whoever takes him in, they're shelving a burden pretty much. Like they're taking in a whole litany of problems.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, man, this was actually a pretty interesting game right here. The Steelers end up snatching one from the Ravens in overtime, 16-13. This was the classic Ravens-Steelers game, but we're here's the thing though, folks. We're gonna really get to this game later. We're gonna break it down later. We're gonna get back to it because there's some stuff that you and I have to say about the Ravens, but that's probably gonna take up the most time of this. So we're gonna get right back to this game. Cincinnati and Cleveland. Now, Cleveland did get the win here. Baker did not play. It was Case Keenum, and Joe Burrow did not play on the Bengals side. This was essentially a battle of the backups. And it also appears as if that the Browns are going to retain Baker for another year, but there is rumblings, however, that 2022 is going to be an evaluation year for him. It's going to be one of those years where they look closely at him. And you know what? Don't be shocked if the Browns reach for a quarterback in the draft. I could see them doing that. I could easily see them doing that, even though whoever they pick up is probably not going to be ready to be a starter. But I could easily see them either not going after like a mid-tier veteran, but maybe going after a draft pick, like getting a draft pick to, I guess, either motivate Baker to play better for a chance, or at least see if they have something that's a little better than what they got right now.
One thing I could see happening with Baker Mayfield and the Browns is potentially something similar to what we saw last offseason with the Lions and Rams when they swapped quarterbacks, Jared Goff and Matt Stafford.
Right.
I could potentially see a situation play out here where maybe like Seattle decides to swap and Russell Wilson goes to Cleveland and Baker goes to Seattle.
It would be interesting. I mean,
or Baker goes down to Houston and Deshaun Watson comes to Cleveland. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if something like that happens.
Yeah, it is likely considering we have seen a quarterback swap happen recently, so there's a very good chance that we could see a quarterback swap go down here. And you know what? It honestly, it would be the best case scenario for Baker to get the hell out of Cleveland because that team is loaded. They were way more loaded when they had Beckham there, but that offense, of course. But yeah, man, that team was loaded, and the fact that Baker Mayfield is the reason that they can't really, win the amount of games they need to win and get to the playoffs and go on a serious run within the playoffs. The fact that you see that gap and that void there is to a point where you can't salvage it. Like, everybody knows what the gaping problem is, and at this point you got to replace him because Baker is who he is. He can't get any better from here. He pretty much has hit his ceiling in a way.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, and it's a shame, man. Hopefully, the Browns at least consider all their options because if they just bring Baker back, they're not going to win anything significant in the division this year or next year or next season.
Yeah, I agree.
Absolutely. In our next game, the 49ers. And I'll tell you what, man, this is a team you and I have talked about. That's another team that was on a streak. The team that was in the AFC streaking was the Colts. They crashed and burned. The team that was streaking in the NFC, the 49ers, they closed out in style, man. They took out the Rams 27-24. And they go to the playoffs to, face a pretty interesting foe out in the NFC East. We'll preview that a little later. But I'll tell you what, man. John Lynch has put together something interesting in San Francisco. And by the way, this run makes the quarterback situation interesting as well because I imagine regardless of what happens here, granted, Jimmy G has only had to do just enough to be a game manager. I wonder, are the 49ers going to proceed with Trey Lance next year, or are they going to give Jimmy G another year, or are they going to ship Jimmy G out somewhere after this run?
From what I've seen and what I've known, I think we talked about it on this show already, that
the
Niners have already said in some circles that Jimmy G's gone at the end of this year regardless, no matter what.
Right. And it does make things
interesting. And then
interesting.
essentially the rest of the season was just, hey, Jimmy G, try to increase your price tag so that we can trade you and get a lot in return.
And
So
he certainly did that with the run with the run they're going on here.
yeah,
It is very interesting. Hopefully they move on with their plan with Trey Lance, because Trey Lance still, to me, seems like the long term solution for them. Whereas Jimmy G, put in his, years there, but now it's time to move on. But even so, the run is impressive, and if anything, it's gonna certainly attract a lot of suitors. I want to see how far this team's gonna go, though. Their first round matchup is gonna be very intriguing. We're gonna break that down a little later, but hey, certainly a team to watch out for in the playoffs. As for the Rams, hey, this is what the Rams put that super team together for now. They made it into the playoffs. They had the rest of the regular season once Odell and Miller arrived to get their shit together. Now this is the time. This is a Monday night, the first Monday night playoff game, and I mean this it's got to be the first one in NFL history, right?
it is.
The first Monday night football playoff game in NFL history, and they get the Cardinals. Right now, the Rams, I would say, probably have the most pressure on them when you think about all the teams, because when you think about how stacked up they are going into the playoffs. I mean, if you think about it, they are the NFC East version of the Browns right now, where you know how the Browns were stacked on both sides. Now you got a Rams team stacked on both sides. Monday night, we're gonna find out if they're the real deal or not.
It's true.
The regular season was, they had their ups and downs, but that's because chemistry and fitting, those important pieces in OBJ and Miller into the fold. Now that they're in the fold, and now that the regular season is done, I mean, at this point, everything they do now means a lot. They must go on a run, because if they're one and done come Monday night, it's gonna look like a colossal waste, if you ask me.
That's true. That's for sure.
So definitely, yeah, the Rams, if, in my opinion, the team with the most pressure on them heading into the playoffs. But we're gonna break that down a little later. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers beat up on the Panthers 41-17. I mean, hey, the Panthers are pretty much going to be in full rebuild mode at this point, and I mean, and I do have to ask you this: do you believe we have seen the last of Cam Newton, or do you believe Cam Newton will be on that squad for at least maybe one more year?
I think Cam Newton's done.
Interesting. I'm thinking so too. After seeing him come back for Carolina, he had the one game where he scored the two touchdowns. He said he was back, and then just like that, it was out the window. And ever since then, it's pretty much been out the window. So yeah, this kind of feels like the end for Cam Newton.
Yeah, yeah, I'd say it'd be the end. This is also Skull Drag of the Week, biggest blowout victory.
Ah, that is correct. This is the official Skull Drag of the Week. Thank you for reminding me. This is not just the biggest margin of victory, but when you watch the game itself, I gotta say, Tampa doesn't really miss AB too much now, do they?
Oh no,
Yeah,
no, not at all.
I know, right? And by the way, very
Well,
interesting.
and part of that's because who's been stepping up for them,
Uh,
former Raven, Rashad Perriman.
how about that? How about Mr. Perryman finding second life with Tom Brady? It's like that man revives careers. It's insane.
Yeah,
And looking at this next game right here, man. Now, hey, it's funny. This is a bittersweet victory here, because this victory was very important for the Seahawks. This could have been the last time we see Pete Carroll and Russell Wilson pull out a win together, because either one of them or both of them are going to be gone. And as for the Cardinals, man, the Cardinals, they had a good, first half of the season, struggled a little bit second half. Not too much struggling, but just a little bit. But hopefully they wake up, because now it's playoff time. The Cardinals can't drag anymore. And considering how strong of a start of the season they had, the playoffs now mean a lot more than ever. That Monday Night Football game has a lot of stakes to it, if you think about it.
yeah, and you really got to see the Cardinals bounce back. They've limped their way into the playoffs these last few weeks, this last month.
They did.
So we'll see what they do. I mean, this Cardinals team is also very young outside of some of their vets. We know DeAndre Hopkins is gone. He's not going to be with them. for
That's
the rest
true.
of the year. But they got AJ Green on the roster. He's played some playoff games before. They're going to get JJ Watt back. He's played some playoff games before. Chandler Jones has played some playoff games before in New England. So, like, they got some guys around. But all in all, this will be Colin Murray's first playoff game and some others. So, we'll see what they do.
Absolutely. That's going to be a very interesting one. By the way, first official playoff game for Matty Stafford, too, isn't it?
No.
Oh,
No,
that's
him
right.
and the Lions have been in the playoffs before.
Ah, that's right. They have been in the playoffs before. It's been so long, you almost forget.
Back when good old Jim Caldwell was their head coach.
Goodness gracious. That feels like an eternity, too. It actually has.
Yeah, because I think it was like 6 years ago.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's definitely it's definitely been a long time. Holy shit. 6 years is a good while. And our next game, actually, it's funny. This game actually told me a lot about the Patriots in a way. Miami wins 33-24. Bittersweet win for Miami. We're gonna talk about that a little later, of course. But Miami going out with a win. Unfortunately, no playoffs for them though. New England moves on to the playoffs despite losing. But I gotta say though, Mac Jones is gonna be a nervous wreck when it comes to playoffs because this is his first time in the playoffs. Speaking of people who've never been before. It's going to be interesting to see how he responds, considering that the very first game that he has to play in, he has to go to Buffalo. Where last time I believe the Patriots went to Buffalo, it was snowy, and I think he only threw it like once.
Yeah, but at least the Patriots won that game, right?
Yeah, that's true. I wonder if that strategy is going to work out again for him this time, considering
Yeah.
the circumstances. But yeah, that's going to be interesting to see how they respond. In our next game, in a nothing game right here, Atlanta gets beaten up by the Saints 30-20. Uh, the Saints essentially are going back to the drawing board this offseason. They're going to get Jameis back. They're probably going to kick themselves for signing that deal with Taysom Hill once they saw how terrible of a quarterback he was. And hopefully, when they get some of their pieces back, they might be able to do something next year. But as for Atlanta, they just need to go ahead and blow that entire thing up. Matt Ryan is going to be shipped out of there. No idea where he's going, but I have a feeling we've seen him play his last game as a Falcon. What do you think?
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, it feels like this is the time for Atlanta to officially blow that team up. They already shipped out Julio, he's in Tennessee. Time to ship out Matt Ryan and just finally blow up that team from the Super Bowl. Goodness gracious. Let's see. In our next game, the Bills beat up on the Jets 27-10. Beat them by 17. The Jets, of course, are the Jets. They're not really going to go anywhere significant. Not this year. Maybe not the next 2-3 years. But at least they have a quarterback in Zach Wilson who's okay when he's not getting killed. As for the as for the Bills,
Emphasis on when he's not getting killed.
exactly. Just like every other quarterback with the Jets, they seem to do fine, but like when they get out of there, that's when they truly do okay. As for the Bills are going to stampede their way into the playoffs. They struggled a bit throughout the later half of the season, but they finally get in there and they get a home playoff game. But hey, the Bills are going to have to pick it up now. That win against a bad team is going to help get them a little confidence, but still, they're going to have to turn it up now because this is where it really counts.
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. And in our final game, this was a thrilling game right here. The Raiders beat the Chargers 35-32 in a game in which, by the way, the Raiders admitted they would have been okay with a tie. And I think a lot of people would have been fine with a tie. I know all of Baltimore was pissed off they didn't go for the tie. I know that. You and I were
I
both
think
mad.
I think most people wanted this game to end in a tie, unless you were a
Yes,
Steelers fan.
absolutely. Trust me, the Steelers fans were probably the only ones that were begging for one team to win. But yeah, this was a very odd. It wasn't an odd game, but it was a very exciting game, considering the circumstances, and it added on to the drama a bit. But yeah, the Raiders win. Raiders are in the playoffs, but man, you want to talk about disappointing squads this year? You and I had high hopes for the Chargers, and they go out like this.
Yeah, I think everybody did, and in a lot of ways, it kind of comes down to the coaching of Brandon Staley. Now, I'll get to the ending game sequence because I know that's been very controversial about Brandon Staley calling the
Yes.
timeout, whatever. I'll get to that in a second about my viewpoints. But all in all, looking at the season entirely for the Chargers, very much a situation where Brandon Staley kind of like coached his team out of the playoffs. Like,
right.
There's a lot of decisions and things that were made, that he made throughout the season that were really good. Had the Chargers, this very aggressive style that had the Chargers looking like a dangerous team, but also a lot of times it also bit this team in the ass.
Right.
Again, the end of the game aside, this game kind of was an amalgamation of that, because there was a point earlier in this game, I think it was in the third quarter, where Brandon Staley decides to go for it on like fourth and I want to say 15, 16, 7, whatever it is. And they were on like the fucking 20-yard line of their own territory. And they were lucky that the Raiders only got a field goal out of it.
Right.
But it was just like, yo, really? Who the fuck do you think you are? Going for it on fourth down?
Right.
And forever in your own territory? Are you fucking crazy?
Right. The play calling was maddening after a while.
Yeah. And like, he would make these decisions all season long. And it cost him games. It literally cost him games. So, Staley's going to have to get better at just, I know he's all about the analytics and all that, and that's a big part of his shtick, but, I feel like there's some adjustments he's going to have to make in his situational just decision-making for this team to succeed in the future. You can't, this is going to have to change.
Yeah, it definitely is, man. It definitely is. And before we get to our coaches that got fired, let's go ahead and break down the Ravens and Steelers game. This 16.
Before we get there, because I said I wanted to talk about it.
Oh, okay.
So the end of the Chargers Raiders game.
Okay.
I'm gonna be on record here. So, as we know, 38 seconds left in overtime. Brandon Staley calls timeout.
Mm-hmm.
Raiders, after the timeout, line up. They run a play. Josh Jacobs runs for about 10 yards, 11 yards. They get the field goal to win the game. A lot of the controversy is that if Brandon Staley doesn't call timeout, then the Raiders let the clock run out. But I don't think that's entirely true, because a lot of people are like, well, this is what would happen. The Raiders were clearly going to let the clock run out. They didn't care. And yes, it is a fact, as the Raiders said, that they were all right with letting the clock run out. And I think that's true. I think that is true.
Mm-hmm.
But here's the thing. Before that timeout, before Brandon Staley calls timeout with 38 seconds to go, the Raiders are lined up in shotgun. So they're in a passing formation, not a run formation. And I think it was very clear that the Chargers were looking at that like, wait a second. Are they about to pull the wool over our eyes and throw a pass here and try to win the game?
Right.
So Brandon Staley's like, hold up, timeout. Let's get in the right people we need. So they change personnel. They come back out of the timeout. The Raiders line up as single back with Derek Carr under center. They hand it off to Josh Jacobs, who runs 10 yards and gets them in the field goal range.
Right.
I bet you, really the only thing that makes the difference here in this game of whether the Raiders let the clock run out and kick the field goal is if they stop Josh Jacobs at the line of scrimmage. If Josh Jacobs doesn't run for 10 yards after the timeout, then the Raiders let the clock run out. I think it's as simple as that.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter whether Brandon Staley calls the timeout or not. If they stop Josh Jacobs on the next play, the game's over. Doesn't matter.
Well, you got to think, stopping Josh Jacobs ain't easy.
Yeah, and that was the thing. There's like, they were trying to get the right personnel, I guess, to try to stop whatever play, but
Right.
like they just didn't make the stop. I think that's what it really comes down to. It had nothing to do with Staley calling timeout. It had everything to do with just the fact that they just didn't stop Josh Jacobs on the next play.
Yeah.
That's all it was.
Yeah, that's certainly something that's noteworthy. Even so, though, the Chargers get what they deserve because they choked in the later half of the season, anyways. Like they had built up enough wins for themselves to where they could at least look like a playoff team, and nights like that night pretty much prove as to why they don't even deserve to be there in the first place.
It's fair, but for what it's worth, I would have much rather saw the Chargers in the playoffs than the Steelers.
Hey, I would too. It's just a shame
I
that the
think
Chargers had to
everybody
choke.
would.
Oh yeah,
Man.
absolutely, absolutely. It's just a shame that the Chargers had to choke again.
Yeah.
And just disappoint everybody. Okay, so basically, yeah, it's a shame though. It really is a shame. Could have been a much better playoff with the Chargers in there because I don't even think the Steelers are gonna have that big of an impact.
Hell, even Ben Roethlisberger said in the press conference today, "We don't stand a chance of winning this game, so we're just gonna go out and have fun."
Exactly. I mean, they know what's up, and again, the Chargers should have been a team to step up and just take it for themselves, but in the end, they crashed and burned. That's just another what if story for the season, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then going back up, let's see. Now, finally, to wrap up the week, the Steelers beat the Ravens 16-13 in overtime. It was a very close game. Classic Ravens Steelers matchup. Of course, unfortunately, the lack of offensive creativity for the Ravens ended up doing them in, as well as just not. Well, unfortunately for this game as well, Lamar Jackson was not playing. He didn't play for the past, I think, what was it, 4 games? Like 4 or 5 games, I believe. Might have been,
Yeah.
yeah, might have been longer than that. And what sucks about this game too, by the way, is that this is the Ravens' sixth straight loss. So going into next season, their very first game is all about snapping the losing streak in a way, because fans will not forget this shit. They lost 6 straight heading into the off season. It's a very
Yeah.
disappointing way to go out. Uh, what I would like to see happen, and I'm pretty sure you would like to see it happen as well. Obviously, with the Steelers, they're going to move on to the playoffs. You know, everybody knows that. They pretty much, I mean, hey, they in the end they won the game, therefore they deserve to be there. But in terms of the Ravens, they need to do something when it comes to the offensive play calling, and that falls mainly on Greg Roman. And I know that's who you mainly want to talk about, so I'll just kind of give you the floor on that.
Yeah. I mean, the Ravens need a new offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
It's honestly as simple as that. It just wasn't working, and the wild thing about it too is that when you think about it, is that like on the other side of the coin is if Lamar Jackson plays, the last 4 or 5 games, I bet they probably win 1 or 2 and are in the playoffs.
Right.
But that aside, I think there just needs to be a change because I think there's a lot of frustration going on amongst the players in Baltimore. We know there's a lot of frustration amongst the fans,
Right.
and at this point, I mean, we've been kind of like the calls for Greg Roman's head have been there for a couple of years now. They've been
Right.
just like silently, or not silently, they've been getting louder every single year.
And honestly, when you see how, you know, the promises of the evolution of the offense with creativity, like when you have those promises thrown in only for there to be no creativity and no evolution of the offense, it just wears on the patience of fans. And like you said, man, and like you said, all those weapons, everything, and yet no sort of creativity with the play calling. It's all pretty much the same thing. It's the same reads, and you wonder why somebody like Bateman gets frustrated with the lack of targets.
Yeah, and it's still such a nuanced situation because on one hand we actually did see quite a bit of new quite a bit of new things for the Ravens offense this year. You think about the Ravens in the first half of the season. Granted, they would continuously start off slow,
Right.
which was frustrating. But,
Yes.
for a lot of games, I'd say in the first half of the season, Lamar was getting it going, throwing the football. Aside from turnovers that were sometimes his fault, sometimes, others, like the passing game was doing what it needed to do.
Right.
And was making moves. It was really about halfway through the season, that Miami game was really the turnaround. Was when things weren't working out, and it didn't seem like adjustments were being made to get better, and it kind of stayed that way the rest of the year. But also by that point, after that Miami game, I think after that Miami game, Lamar only played two more games the rest of the season after that Miami game.
Right.
And of course, the other big thing to consider too is that the Ravens played this entire season without their running back stable, without Gus Edwards, J.K. Dobbins, who I think everyone knows were figured to be featured points of this offense that we never got to see.
Right.
So those are some other things to consider, and that's why even though I'd love for Greg Roman to be out and for us to see some change, I'm scared that it's not going to happen.
Yeah, it's not.
Just because
It's
I
not.
feel like management, DaCosta, Bisciotti are going to be like, well, we had a lot of injuries this year, so everyone gets a pass. Let's run it back and do it again next year.
Well, that's pretty much that's pretty much what they're going to do, and that's why, unfortunately, I don't think the Ravens are going to get any better because of that. Because unfortunately, they're going to get all the weapons back, but the lack of creativity and the terrible offensive play calling is still going to be there.
Yeah, and just in general, like some of the situational things, is going to be bad. The other thing about it too that I'd be concerned about is that, like, I'm wondering, like, what that's going to be like for players, because I feel like we're going to get to a point, if we keep everything the same, I feel like we're going to get to a point where either this off season or at some point during the season next season, people are just going to start, like, players are just going to start revolting against Greg Roman. Like, we're going to get to a point where players are going to be like, it's either Greg or it's me, and I'm not coming back.
Well, we're kind of.
I'm hearing a lot of people go out and say, like, hey, if the Ravens can't figure out something a little bit more solid for the offense as far as play calling and coordinators, Lamar shouldn't sign a new deal yet.
Well, that's kind of the thing. You're kind of getting shades of that already. Like, there's been word of that for years, but yeah, it's only going to intensify now because the longer he's here, the worse the play calling is going to be on the offensive side of the ball. The defense will always hold up its end of the bargain, but it's not going to mean much when the defense is tired due to the offense not even putting up points.
Now, I will say this though too, and this is something that maybe we haven't talked about or thrown out there, but I'm just going to throw it out there. If the Ravens don't make a deep playoff run next year, I think the entire coaching staff should be gone.
Well, we mentioned that this year should have been the year, but unfortunately, because of all the injuries and stuff in training camp and the season being gone in training camp, they're going to be given one more year. So yeah, that automatically rolls over to next year. Because that was supposed to be the narrative. Because that was supposed to be the narrative for this year. They didn't make it, then they were all gone, or at least it was supposed to be that way.
Sure. Well, I think yeah, but I guess we were going to give them maybe a little bit more of a chance. Yeah, but
yeah,
I agree with you.
Yeah,
just the fact of, like, I think someone pointed out to me, on another, like, community or whatever, that
right.
John Harbaugh, hasn't won a playoff game, other than last year,
right.
Outside of last year,
right.
He hasn't won a playoff game since 2014.
Yeah, that's not only is that way too long, the
And
fact
that really opened my eyes because it's
right.
2022 now, so that's 8 years ago.
And mind you, there's a reason people call for that man's job every year because it's like there's only so much they can take when you go on playoff droughts. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, and especially in this town too, the man's been on a good playoff drought, and with a team like this, you would think they would at least get there. But again, the season was lost in training camp this year, so the excuse is there. But still,
Yeah. And then, like, the thing, like, furthermore, when you think about it, so, like, 2014 and 2021, those are the only 2 years that he's won a playoff game in
right,
the last 8 years. And
right.
then, also in that time since, other than 2021, there was only one other year that he made the playoffs, and that was the year before that. And they went one and done. So yeah, we're getting to that point.
Yeah, we definitely are
for
getting
sure.
we definitely are getting to that point, and it's funny you mention coaches and the entire staff because this is the section of our show where we talk about coaches that have been fired. I believe this is what they call Black Monday. Now you have the list in front of you, correct?
I can get in front of me in a second.
Good stuff, good stuff. Because there's actually a good amount of coaches that have been fired. There was one who got the axe earlier today, funny enough. Let me pull up the news here. There we go. Yeah, there was one who got axed earlier today. But hold on. Oh, here we go. Let me go to the full news. All right, there we go.
Yeah, I got them up now, too.
All right, good stuff. Okay, so I'll let you read them off, and yeah, I'll just take it from there.
So the coaches that we have fired, you mentioned the one earlier today, Joe Judge.
Yes, Joe Judge
from Giants.
And by the way, Dave.
Rightfully so.
And Dave, that's true, rightfully so. And the best part is Dave Gettleman, the GM of the Giants, retired before the owner could actually fire his ass. So both the coach and GM.
Yeah, I was about to say it was more like he stepped down before he got fired.
So, but funny enough, and it's funny, the rumor is Joe Judge talked himself out of the job. He was basically going to be saved this year, but because the philosophy was different from ownership and they clashed, he acted like he was Bill Parcells in that meeting room, and it got him fired. Too funny. Wow. Who else we got?
Then we got, as I mentioned earlier, Vic Fangio from the Denver Broncos.
That is right. Vic Fangio.
I also believe rightfully so. We had a little campaign earlier this season about firing.
Yes, we did. We had us a big campaign about him being fired, and you are absolutely right. He did deserve it. Vic Fangio is part of the reason why Denver never really excelled. Not just Drew Lock, but that offensive play calling of Fangio never quite evolved, so John Elway had to get him out of there.
Yeah, and I think getting them somebody good in there will be very, very important.
I agree.
And, of course, find the quarterback. Their defense is fine.
Right.
They got the weapons on offense. Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy,
yes.
Melvin Gordon run the football. They're fine.
Right.
Noah Fant at tight end. And even their offensive line is high. Garrett Bowles and company. But dang, just get them a quarterback, get them a coach, please.
I know, right? They need it bad. Who else got canned?
Then we got Matt Nagy from the Chicago Bears.
Rightfully.
Another one we saw coming.
That's true. And you know what? I'm surprised it didn't happen during Thanksgiving Day, but you know what? I think the Thanksgiving Day win is what saved him. But even so, I think you and I called it actually during Thanksgiving when we did the show. We said that if he wasn't fired Thanksgiving, he would be fired at the end of the year, and they did just that.
Yeah, I think I remember saying around that time too. I went to the Ravens Bears game in Chicago before Thanksgiving.
That's true.
I got to hear the very first fire Nagy chants in Soldier Field.
That's right. That's when they lost to Tyler Huntley, right? Huntley was starting a quarterback, not
Huntley's
Lamar.
Only W as a starting quarterback, unfortunately.
Wow, and you got to witness that, funny enough. That was interesting.
Yes.
By the way, I know there are more firings. There's some other people that got fired, I believe, correct?
Yeah, there's two more. There's two more, but I was saving them for the end because I knew we'd both have some words on these guys.
Oh, yeah.
So the first one, I'll let you take this one. It's Mike Zimmer from the Minnesota Vikings.
Yes, and the best part is the GM Spielman got his ass canned too. And let me tell you this: this was a long time coming. They should have fired Zimmer about like 2 years ago, but I'll take it. They should have fired the GM about 3 years ago, but I'll take it as well. I love this because what this tells me is they are completely rebuilding now. They're tearing that whole thing apart. They're getting that bum Spielman out of there, so all the people that he wants to pick, even though we had some good draft picks, like the Justin Jeffersons of the world and whatnot. But unfortunately, we've had Justin Jefferson. We've had some Dalvin Cooks. We've had some bad ones, unfortunately, as well. But at the same time,
you had Stefon Diggs too.
Yes, we did have Stefon Diggs, and unfortunately, the personnel move of Kirk Cousins kicked Stefon Diggs out of Minnesota, a move that many fans in Minnesota have never forgotten about, by the way. Because imagine, we could have had Stefon Diggs and we could have had Jefferson because we drafted them both. Ugh, goodness.
Well, for what it's worth, Justin Jefferson was drafted because you let Stefon Diggs go.
Exactly. That was the thing. We could have had both, but
you
unfortunately,
wouldn't have had both because they wouldn't have drafted Justin if Stefon Diggs was still around.
I don't. Well, the only reason I say maybe
exists too.
He does, but that's the thing, though. They probably would have tried to get a third receiver because outside of those two, who else did we really have at receiver? The options.
I still doubt that they would have drafted Justin Jefferson if Stefon Diggs was still on the roster.
I don't know. I feel like it would have been a toss up only because with the running game being solid, we would have needed more options at receiver, and the receivers we had outside of Diggs and Thielen were not all that hot, even though they did the job for us.
Y'all would have had more troubles or more options such as your defense and your secondary.
Well, that's the thing. They should have built up the defense and secondary, but they didn't do that, unfortunately. The defense was good, but it never reached its full potential, unfortunately, and Zimmer had a lot to do with that, unfortunately.
Wasn't Zimmer a defensive-minded coach?
He is, and he's actually the reason why the defense collapsed, funny enough. The main focus, exactly, the main focus for him was defense, and yet the defense completely collapsed as a result of all of his work. So that's the thing. They had to get him out of there, and they had to get the GM out of there too because not just for the Diggs move, but there were some other questionable drafting moves that did not necessarily pan out for the team. So we needed somebody else who had a better direction for the squad. So I'm glad the GM and Zimmer are out of there.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's time for change in Minnesota for sure.
It is. There is another firing you wanted to mention, right?
Yes, the final firing that I wanted to save for last because for me it was the biggest shock.
Yes.
I think for you as well.
Right.
And that was Brian Flores getting fired in Miami.
Yeah.
So the news is, or the word is that his firing was the result of a power struggle between him and the general manager in Miami, Chris Grier.
Yes. That is correct.
That essentially they didn't like each other, wanted different things, and essentially the owner had to choose, does Flores stay or Grier, or does Grier stay? And apparently, some other words is that what might have been the deciding factor was that Grier wanted to keep Tua as the starting quarterback, and Flores maybe didn't.
Yeah, so, it's funny. Actually, that is correct because Flores, the word is he wants Deshaun Watson. And apparently, wherever he goes, like in terms of his next head coaching job, I believe if there is a QB problem, he's going to advocate. He's going to be an advocate for Watson because Deshaun Watson's who he wanted in Miami. And apparently management wanted Tua. And it actually explains a lot, quite a bit. It explains why Flores was always hesitant in keeping Tua as the starter. until he
Yeah,
had
it's
until
pretty
he
evident
had to.
that Brian Flores never really believed in Tua.
Yeah, it's funny. Management, tanked for Tua and whatnot, but the head coach not believing in him, that certainly would be a problem.
Yeah,
It will be interesting of note, though, that wherever Flores goes, if that team has a QB problem, I won't be surprised if Deshaun Watson ends up at said team that Flores is coaching. So that will be
on
something to, yeah,
and
that,
when
oh, God.
and if he can find someone that's like minded with him, I think Flores is going to be someone that's going to end up on one of these teams that as you say, has a quarterback problem, and but also a team that's probably already like ready made to go to
Right.
the next level. Like maybe, as we were just talking about, maybe a Denver Broncos.
I agree, and you know what? He's going to be the most sought after coach, in my opinion. I think he's going to be the coach that a lot of teams are going to line up to talk to.
I believe, according to sources already, he's already been interviewing as of today. He
Oh,
just got fired on Monday.
it hey, just goes to show, man, he's that valuable, and it's crazy that a clash with management is what led to him leaving. Because I imagine at another franchise, that man's going to be there a while. You don't fire that guy.
Yeah, I mean, the way he was able to turn around that Miami team, even with the quarterback controversy and his whole change-up matter that he's been doing the last couple of years. But
Yeah,
do I
he's
start Tua or do I start Jacoby Brissett or do I start Fitz Magic last year? He still had that team, in consecutive winning seasons.
I gotta say,
And
and I gotta say, by the way, he really turned around that defense and the special teams of the Dolphins too, man.
yeah,
He really turned it around. So it seems crazy to let a guy like that go,
yeah.
considering everything he built there. So apparently those are all the firings. So now that we got all the trash taken out officially, we
Well,
can.
of course, and then those teams don't include the ones that we already know, such as Jacksonville.
Oh, of course, yeah. Like Jacksonville had to can Urban Meyer, or like before the
And
season even ended.
yes, and then also the Raiders, who made the playoffs, also don't have a coach officially.
By the way, it's funny how the Raiders can John Gruden and still make the playoffs. I mean, that pretty much proves they didn't really need that guy.
Yeah, and it also, stands to reason why potentially, I forget who the Raiders interim coach is, but maybe he ends up staying and keeps the job. I know also some rumblings for the Raiders has been another Harbaugh coming back to the NFL.
Yeah, it's funny
Um,
you say that. The one in Michigan did. It's funny. He won. He beat his rival. I believe they won the Big Ten, even though they got skull dragged in the playoff game. But yes, it looks like Jim's brother. I mean, I'm sorry. Wait, it's Jim, right? Yeah, Jim Harbaugh.
correct, yes.
He's going to be making his way back to the NFL, and that could very well be one of the teams he goes for.
Yeah.
I gotta say though, last time we saw him in the NFL, he was with the 49ers. He did go to a Super Bowl, even though he lost to his brother there. So I imagine deep down he's probably like, you know what, I need to get back there. I need to
I
get
mean,
that
in
Super
my
Bowl
eyes,
back.
Harbaugh was a good NFL coach.
He was. He was a
Just
very good
he was a
coach.
really good NFL coach. The problem was is that similar to Brian Flores, him and management just didn't click.
And it's true. And you know what? After the season he had at Michigan and the way he turned around Michigan's program from being on the brink of irrelevancy to now back in the top of college football, he's certainly going to attract a lot of suitors. So I won't be shocked if he ends up leaving Lansing basically before the NFL season begins.
Yeah.
All right. And with that being said, let us go to our games next week. And keep in mind, folks, the playoffs next week are as follows. They're going Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. So we're getting 3 days worth of games here. On Saturday, 4:30, Las Vegas Raiders, Cincinnati Bengals in a I'd say a very good matchup right here. It's going to be interesting. Derek Carr versus Joe Burrow. This is in Cincinnati. Who you got?
I'm picking the Cincinnati Bengals.
It should be of note
Picking,
actually. Let me pull up the. Actually, no, my bad. Keep going.
yeah, I'm picking the Cincinnati Bengals. They're at home. You know, it's the first playoff game in a while. It's the Raiders' first playoff game in a while. Both of them haven't had a playoff W in a long time.
Oh man.
The last playoff win for the Raiders was in 2002.
Right.
And the last playoff win for the Bengals, I want to say 1991.
Ooh.
So for both teams, it's been a long time coming, but I think the Bengals are going to get the one here. The Bengals, despite losing to the Browns in Week 18, which is still weird to say, to me, they've been hot towards the end of the season. They have an explosive offense. Their defense has been pretty good, too. I do think it's going to be a good matchup. I think the Raiders do match up reasonably well, but I think the Bengals just have too much firepower. And I think the Bengals will get the job done.
I agree. I think the Bengals are certainly going to have. I think the Bengals are certainly going to have themselves one hell of a game, as are the Raiders. And it should be noted, by the way, the Bengals are a 5.5 point favorite over the Raiders. So the Raiders are under 5.5 point underdogs. Bengals, of course, 5.5 point favorites. The Bengals as favorites makes a lot of sense to me, but man, only 5 points is the difference. That's going to be an interesting gap right there. That means it's going to be one hell of a close game. Our second game on Saturday, the Patriots travel to Buffalo to take on the Bills. The Bills are a -4 point favorite at home. Patriots 4 point underdog. You know what? The Patriots are they did win last time this game took place in Buffalo. However, this is playoff football. Josh Allen and the Bills certainly have a lot to prove this time around when it comes to the playoff race. And you know what? I think they're going to get the win here. Mac Jones is in his first playoff game. Bill Belichick is coaching a rookie in a playoff game for the first time in a long time. I think this will be a learning experience for old Mac, and maybe next year I'll get him, but this year I think they're going to be one and done. Give me the Bills at home.
Yeah, I'm picking the Bills too as well. I mean, like you said, this is Mac Jones' first playoff game. The Patriots haven't been here in a minute, even though they're pretty accustomed to these sort of things. It's been a couple of years.
Oh yeah.
The Bills, though, if you remember, I mean, at the beginning of the season, the Bills were one of those teams that we were looking at as a Super Bowl contender. They came oh so close last year in the AFC Championship game, and they got a lot to prove. They've been here before recently.
Right.
And as you said, the Patriots won this matchup earlier this season. But then the Bills got some revenge in their second meeting. So this being the rubber match, the third game of the year between the Patriots and the Bills, I think the Bills have this one at home.
Absolutely. And with that 4 point spread, it's certainly going to be a very close one. A lot of sweating there if anybody's going to be betting that one. Let's see. We have the Eagles traveling to Tampa Bay to face the Buccaneers. The Buccaneers are a 9 point favorite in this game. I'm going to take the Bucks, obviously, because, hey, the Eagles had a good season, but I don't think they belong here.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. I think the Bucks are going to get a win here. It's worth noting these teams did play early this season. It was a close game, but the Bucks definitely came out on top. I think the Eagles had to make a little bit of a comeback and came up short.
Absolutely.
I think the Buccaneers are going to get a win here. The Eagles are young. They still got some pieces that they need to put together. Good experience for them to just be here, but it's one of those. Thanks for coming.
Absolutely, it'll certainly be good experience for Jalen Hurts. He certainly needs it. That'll be a let's see, that'll be a 1 o'clock game on Sunday. 4:30 p.m. on Sunday. Now, this is a game I'm certainly very interested in, very invested in. Other than the Bengals and Raiders, this is a game that I'm highly anticipating all weekend long. The 49ers and the Cowboys. Cowboys are a -3 favorite. 49ers are a +3 underdog. You know what? Again, the Cowboys, they have Dak, they have Zeke, they're healthy. They're in full swing, full go. But you know what? If I'm going to pick an upset this weekend, I'm going to pick it in this game. I think the 49ers are on a roll. They certainly, hey, Debo Samuel's certainly something special. I got to say that much. He's certainly something special. And that defense is coming along together as well for the 49ers. They certainly have proven themselves to be a strong opponent for any team in the playoffs. Certainly a strong wild card / dark horse type of team. I think they're going to get it done this weekend. If there's going to be an upset this weekend, I think it's going to be 49ers over the Cowboys. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't hate it. I agree with you.
And it's only
the mindset of.
Oh, go ahead.
I agree with you in the mindset of if there's a wild card team that's gonna get a W this weekend, I think it's the Niners. I think they have the best chance to do it. It's gonna be a good game. I'm gonna pick the Cowboys.
All right.
I'm gonna pick the Cowboys.
Okay.
Just to keep it interesting. Maybe see if Dak can get a playoff win. But like you said, like the Niners are a strong team. They're getting hot. Debo is a hell of a weapon. Let's also not forget, this Niners team has been here before. They were just in the Super Bowl a couple of years ago.
It's true.
With Jimmy G and Nick Bosa and everybody.
That is true.
They've been here before. They know what this is about.
That's true. Jimmy G could very well turn it up in the playoffs.
So I don't hate it.
Right.
I don't hate it, but I'm probably still going to pick the Cowboys.
Absolutely. And hey, that just goes to show how exciting this game's going to be. It's 4:30 on a Sunday. I'll take it. That is prime time right there. And speaking of prime time, this is probably going to be the skull drag of the weekend, in my opinion, and I'm pretty sure you join me in this. The Steelers and the Chiefs. The Chiefs are favored by 12 points at home. Yeah, I think we know where this is going to go. Give me the Chiefs all day.
Yeah, this is very much going to be Ben Roethlisberger's final game of his career.
I agree, 100%. This will be it.
It should have been last week, but it will definitely be this week for sure.
I agree with that.
The only thing I'm mad about is that they're going to make him go out on prime time at 8:15 on Sunday night. They didn't have to do Ben Roethlisberger dirty like that, but you know what? That's fine by me.
Well, the best part is they're going to get their faces kicked in by halftime, and anything we see after that's going to be a bonus for all of us that hate the Steelers.
Yeah. I mean, that's going to be like, if this ends up being a skull drag by halftime,
right?
The second half is just going to be the announcers talking about Ben Roethlisberger's career.
Right.
And I'm just going to be like, all right, whatever, screw it.
Right, like, hey, Roethlisberger received his flowers and got all the praise and everything. I will say, the Ravens-Steelers rivalry is going to be much different without him there, because he's been the staple of it for a long time. But yeah,
I mean, he's the last of the previous generation of
right.
Ravens-Steelers battles.
He is, man, and that's the one thing I can give him his respect for is the fact that when he leaves, that Ravens-Steelers rivalry is going to be different. Like, Dwayne Haskins versus Lamar Jackson is not going to hit the same, It's just not.
Yeah, when you think about it, like, the previous era of Ravens-Steelers games when you had the Ray Lewis Ravens with Terrell Suggs and Ed Reed and Joe Flacco.
And like with
all those guys from that era.
Right.
And on the Steelers side, you had, of course, that, but also James Harris, Troy Polamalu,
Hines Ward, Santonio Holmes,
Ben's the last of that generation.
He is, man. It's crazy to think about it too, but yeah, he's the last of the Mohicans in a way, and he's gonna go out getting his face kicked in by the Chiefs. That's a tough way to go out, but Hey, I'm pretty sure he wouldn't have it any other way. He can at least say he was in the playoffs.
That's true.
Absolutely. And in our final game, I'm really looking forward to this game right here because, like you said, this is high stakes, bro. Cardinals Rams. The Cardinals had a strong surge in the first half of the season, struggled and limped into the playoffs. The Rams, they were a team that looked like they were a piece or two away. They get those pieces in the form of Odell Beckham Jr., Von Miller for this exact moment. And now,
And by the way, Odell Beckham and Von Miller balled out the last month of the season.
yes, they have. And this is exactly why the Rams brought him over for this exact moment. On a Monday night, bro, the first ever Monday night football game, the surging Cardinals up against the stacked Rams. It is a 4-point spread between these two. The Rams are favored by 4 at home. And you know what? I like the Cardinals a lot, but here's my mentality about this game. The Rams went through all this trouble to get Miller, to get OBJ, and to really stack that team up for this playoff run. If they're going to stack it up like this, then they must win. And because I feel like it's a must win, give me the Rams at home.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. I'm picking the Rams. Mine also, it's not even necessarily like you mentioned earlier about all the pressure that's on the Rams of all the pieces that they've brought in.
Right.
Whatever. For me, it's not even that. I think the Rams get this win because the Cardinals just aren't ready for this moment yet.
Well, yeah, that is true too.
Second, just like last year they collapsed so far that they missed the playoffs.
Right.
This year, the Cardinals were just lucky enough that they started the season so strongly, being the last undefeated team.
Right.
That they're still slide into the playoffs, even though they finished the season limping with a cane and everything. And I think that they're probably going to still be continuing to limp in this game against the Rams on Monday night, and the Rams are going to come out lucky with a pretty easy win. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if this game ends up being a blowout.
Yeah, you know what? I could very well see that too, just because it's, well, like you said, the Cardinals haven't really been here before. The Rams have, but the Rams, now that they have this stacked up team, now they have certainly necessary pieces on both sides of the ball. They can certainly punch the Cardinals in the mouth, and there's a good chance the Cardinals will never recover from it.
Yeah.
It certainly could look that way. So we're both going to go Rams on that one. So just the recap for those watching, we're going Rams here, -4. Even though I'm probably going to go money line there because I feel like they're going to blow them out. Let's see. We both picked the Chiefs -12, -720. So Chiefs pretty much going to be all the way for that. Let's see. 49ers, Cowboys. You went with the Cowboys. I'm going with the 49ers. They're going to be my only underdog pick of the weekend, actually. I'm likely going to go +130. Not going to go on the money line. I mean, on the spread for that because it's funny. When it comes to gambling, spreads are very dangerous to bet when it comes to playoff games and championships because you just don't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, like it's best to go with the straight money line bet. That way, it's just like, okay, you just need the team to win. Doesn't matter the score. But yeah, I would stay away from spreads during the playoffs. For all those watching this, they're going to gamble. Go money line here. So I'm going to go money line for the 49ers. We both picked the Buccaneers at -390. Let's see. We both picked the Bills at -210. And then you picked the Bengals, right?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, so we both picked the Bengals at -235. So to recap, the only game that you and I are split on is 49ers Cowboys. I'm going 49ers, he's going Cowboys. I'm going to go, if you guys want an underdog pick though, I'm pretty sure you can agree on this though. Like, and you actually mentioned it before. If there is an underdog that can win this weekend, the 49ers could do it.
Yes.
So absolutely, yeah. If all of you watching just want one underdog for the weekend, go San Francisco 49ers. Obviously, B Money's on the record as picking the Cowboys, though. But if you guys just want an underdog, go 49ers. As far as the other safe bets, We're going Chiefs, and we're going to go Rams for those picks. So we are all locked in, folks. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Is there anything we need to close with before we get out of here?
Yeah. One last thing that we gotta do, our last final segment of this week, is that we gotta go through and make our brackets.
Oh, you mean our brackets for who we think's gonna win it all?
Yeah. Here, I'm gonna talk you through yours.
Okay.
So for the AFC, you said you picked the Bengals,
right?
The Chiefs,
and
the Bills to win.
Yes.
So this would mean your divisional matchups are the Titans playing the Bengals.
I'm gonna have to. Oh wow! I'll go ahead.
You go ahead. Titans, Bengals. Who you got?
Titans, Bengals. You know what? The Titans are getting back Derrick Henry. Oh man. You know what? I'm gonna have to go with the better. You know what? I'm gonna have to go
quick off the cuff, because we don't know if this is actually gonna happen. We're just trying to get to the end.
That's true. So quick off the cuff, I'm gonna go Titans on that one.
All right. Then the other side, you got Chiefs, Bills. Quick off the cuff.
Chiefs, Bills. Oh, give me the Chiefs right there. I'll take the Chiefs.
All right. So your AFC Championship game is Titans and Chiefs. Who you got representing the AFC in the Super Bowl?
You know what? As much as I want to say Derrick Henry and company gets it done, I just don't see. I think the Chiefs get revenge and they go back to the bowl this year. Give me the Chiefs.
All right. For me, I think we have the same AFC picks for wild card. So for me, Titans, Bengals.
Right.
I low-key want to pick the Bengals. So off the cuff, I'm going to pick the Bengals for that.
All right.
And then Chiefs, Bills.
I want to go Bills in that matchup so bad, but I don't know yet. I got to see the Bills do something
I'm kind of with you on the Chiefs. So I'm looking at AFC Championship game of Bengals Chiefs. Even though the Bengals beat them a couple weeks ago, I'd still probably end up with the same with the Chiefs at the top.
Right.
So the Chiefs represent the AFC. NFC, I'm gonna do you first because we had a difference here.
Right.
So your winners in the NFC wild card, you had the Bucks winning, you had the Niners winning, and you had the Rams. So this leads to, in the divisional round, your first matchup, the Packers will take on the Niners. Who you got?
Oh, man. I'll tell you what, I would love to go with the 49ers here, but again, we're talking about the MVP of the league this year, Aaron Rodgers, and the way he's playing, it's unstoppable. So give me the Packers in that one.
All right, and then your other matchup, of course, the other teams that are left, the Bucks and the Rams. Who you got? Tough one.
That is a tough one, but you know what? I'm gonna go with the Rams for the upset. I'm gonna go with the stacked Rams for the upset this year. I think I think one of the things that stacked team's gonna have to do is really knock off, not just knock off the Bucks, but obviously they're just gonna have to steamroll through people. I think this is one of those games where they make a statement win. So give me the Rams over the Bucks.
Gotcha. So your NFC Championship game is Packers and Rams.
Yes, sir.
Who's representing the NFC? Who's taking on the Chiefs?
Ooh, you know what? I love everything about this matchup, but as much as I love the Rams and that stacked team, again, Aaron Rodgers is too dangerous. Even if it's a fourth quarter situation, I feel like Rodgers will come through for them. Give me the Packers over the Rams.
All right. So my man's got the Super Bowl, the Chiefs and the Packers.
Chiefs and Packers. And you know what? I would love to go Mahomes, but my Super Bowl champion's going to be the Green Bay Packers.
Damn.
I believe, man.
No, what's funny is, so let me do my NFC bracket for you.
Okay.
So mine, I had the Bucks, Rams, and Cowboys winning the wild card.
Oh, shit.
So that means your divisional round games for me would be the Packers would take on the Rams.
Oh, man.
In the divisional round. which I picked the Packers.
Right.
And then Bucks Cowboys, I picked the Bucks. So your championship game is a repeat of last year, the Packers and Bucks, in which I also still pick the Packers. So our Super Bowls will be the same. And cause not only would our Super Bowls be the same, but I'm also picking the Packers to win. And you want to know why I'm picking the Packers to win?
Why?
For me, it comes down to there's a couple of things that just makes me feel like it's fate for the Packers to win. Number one, at the beginning of the season when Aaron Rodgers finally signed on, Davante Adams posted on his Instagram a picture from the Last Dance documentary about Michael Jordan's last year in Chicago.
Right.
And, of course, as we know, that Bulls team in 98 went on to win the NBA Finals. And after, of course, that Michael Jordan retired for the second time, and they basically blew up the entire Chicago Bulls team.
Right.
I think Scottie Pippen went to Houston, and some other people went other places, et cetera, et cetera. I believe the general manager went away. Everybody left.
Right.
I get the feeling a similar thing is going to happen here for the Packers, but at the end of the season, once this is gone, because we know Davante Adams' contract is up, we know Aaron Rodgers' contract is up, we know some others, etc. But I think the other thing for me that makes me feel this way about the Packers too is that earlier this week I was watching. You know how Aaron Rodgers is a guest on Pat McAfee's show every Tuesday?
Yes.
So I was watching the Pat McAfee show on Tuesday, and Aaron Rodgers was a guest.
Mm-hmm.
And Pat was asking him about the season. Now the season's over. How does he feel? How's things going? And Aaron Rodgers has always had this sly, relaxed demeanor about himself.
Right.
But he really, really talked about and expressed how much he's enjoyed this season and how much he's had fun this season. You get me?
Mm-hmm.
So it gives me this air that he's Thanos towards the end of Infinity War, where he knows he's about to accomplish what he's going to accomplish, and he's just being reverent on everything.
Right.
And I just get that vibe about the Packers, that this is truly a last dance in every sense of the word. That they're gonna go on, and they're gonna give Aaron Rodgers one more ring, and then he's gonna leave the Packers and go somewhere else, like Tom Brady left the Patriots a couple years ago.
Yeah, it certainly has that vibe to it.
Yeah.
It's gonna be interesting to see how it actually plays out too, because how the off season does, because whether, let's say, they come up short, what Aaron Rodgers does next is going to be every move he does is going to be watched. If they win it all, that's going to be very interesting too, because he could very well just say, okay, this was the last dance, you know what I mean? So like you said, there's a lot to really think about when it comes to the Packers. Win, lose, or draw, the off season's going to be probably the most looked at it's been at in a while.
Yeah.
Certainly feels that way. But yeah, man, it feels like fate, but it's going to be interesting. And now that we have gone through 18 weeks of football, we're finally here at the playoffs. And folks, I certainly hope you all enjoy it. B-Money, I'm sure you'll join me next week to cover all the games from this past weekend, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
No doubt, folks. Enjoy the games this weekend. It's going to be a lot of fun. Remember, it starts Saturday at 4:30 p.m. With 2 games, 4:30, 8:15. Sunday, we get 3 games, 1, 4:30, 8:15. And then Monday night, January 17th, we have an 8:15 game. So a grand total of 6 games in total this weekend. It's going to be madness. I hope you all enjoy it. Folks, thank you all so much for tuning in. We will see you all next week to recap the first Super Wildcard weekend of 2022. And until then, we are gone.